The PS5 kind of went on to have their little announcement, but it was disengaging within the 10 minutes. It was some kind of bullshit. This is the kind of Ray porn that he loves, right? But for the rest of us, we're like, what the fuck is this? It was literally this guy talking in front of a green screen with these fake people in the front.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
and we're supposed to buy into that. So I don't know, Richard.
wait. Are those people? No, dude, this is no, I didn't see it. No, I can immediately tell that that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Dude, I was,
and it's moving too.
Yeah, I saw them moving a little bit. That's.
It was a bait.
Oh wow, that looks so fake.
But like they talked about stuff that I was snoring through. So I think it's fair to at least go over to Ray, right? Ray, at least can you break this down? Was it relevant? Was there anything about this interesting? Because they have yet to see anything. Right? Look at that.
Let me break it down. Let me break it down two ways, right? First of all, you have to understand that this was going to be a much bigger thing at GDC.
Okay.
What is GDC for? GDC is for game developers. It's not for the consumers. It's for game developers, right? And so if they're going to do a substitute event, it's going to be all about the megahertz and the gigawatts and all that nonsense, right? And it's going to be about SSD and the fast loading speed and all that, right? It's going to be about the technical details. And we got the technical details, right? And the specs of the hardware, which is cool. Like that's exactly the type of event this was. If people went into expecting more, they don't know what GDC is about. Period. Right?
This looks like a state of the SNL sketch, dude. It looks like a joke.
So, anyway, I won't even get into it. Right? But the main thing to take away from this though is like with all the stats, all the numbers and everything is like they're really pushing hard on load times and they want seamless load times and they want to reduce. They're doing some interesting things in that area, right? And so there's a lot that I'm excited about to see how games utilize this hardware in order to do no load screens, ultra high speed streaming, all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So like that's the news, and that's what it means to gamers, right?
Okay.
To gamers, it's like, like I can just get into my game and play it right away. Oh, that's like that is the new thing, right? Mm-hmm. And the hardware is also like the GPU, CPU is also great, right? So performance is going to be crazy. Like we might actually start seeing games that actually at 4K, actually running at 60 native, or just running at 60 with some sort of dynamic resolution setup. Like there's a lot to like about the announcement, but of course, was it dry and technical and absolutely boring? Hell yeah, of course it was. Yeah. Right. So, I want to see the games now, right? So I want them to start talking about, okay, here's what we've actually built on this.
Yeah. It's worth noting that even with this being boring, and it was a total bait and switch, in my opinion, it had 13 million views, right? And I saw an article measuring with the Xbox, what do they call it? Scarlet? What's the next one? One X?
Xbox Series X. Xbox Series X.
That only garnered 10 million. So even with its boring ass presentation, it beat Xbox's launch announcement with like typical gamer exciting stuff. But you're saying the hardware was worth it. It was at least something that moved you.
Yeah, and also mind you that the Xbox announcement too was very technical as well, right?
Okay.
These are GDC talks. This is during GDC where they're talking to developers making games for the system. So of course, developers making games for the system want to know how the hell this thing works.
Yeah.
Right. Like at this level. Right. So it just makes sense. Right. Like talking about like my Xbox came out was like, constant. Like if you saw it was the Digital Foundry expose, right? Digital Foundry did a big article about Xbox Series X, and it was just like talking about locked frequencies of the CPU and the GPU and what frequencies they were at, talking about compute units and compute cores where most folks that like most people that are just playing video games just wanted to know, I have more compute units than this other thing has, right? Just to say, hey, I have a bigger number than you without really understanding how that stuff actually works. So like, like it's yeah, it's this is not the real news. You want to see the games and you want to see how they perform on the hardware.
All right. So I'm going to go over to Richard real quick. Right after I asked Ray this one thing. So just comparing the boxes, right? Is it pretty much the same, or what are we saying right here? Is there anything you saw from the PS5 that you're like, oh, okay, that's more interesting than I thought it would be?
I don't know. I'm just a gamer. I need to see the games. I think, like, honestly, man, like,
yeah, because like that question to Ray first. I know you're the game designer. You don't care about that stuff.
Yeah. I do care. Yeah.
If you put them on paper side by side and look at all, honestly, the hardware that they're using is very similar to each other. They're all based on AMD, RDNA, Zen 2 architecture, both of them. So it's pretty much the same CPU and GPU, but with custom modifications on both ends. So on paper, the Xbox Series X looks more powerful on paper.
Wow.
Right. But there's a lot of things that in the Sony talk they were talking about, like I said, with the hard drive and the frequency clocks and all this stuff, that it really is going to come down to the games, right? And I think I've been on here before where I said like Xbox don't really have the games right now, right?
What are you talking about?
And so
they got Minecraft. They got whatever shit Obsidian is doing.
No. Honestly, Microsoft has the games. If you look at it from like if Game Pass is their way of making money,
right?
They have the games for that, and they have the studios for that to give people a variety of different games, right? Mm-hmm. Sony is like, nah, we're just going to deliver you hits. Right, this every first party game is going to be a hit, right? And so it really just comes down to what those games are. Yeah, honestly, because at the end of the day, that's what sells boxes. At the end of the day, it's games. Games sell boxes, right?
Yeah. Ray, is it true? Like, I'm reading this on Tech Radar right now that PS5 could potentially support backwards compatibility, because that's like old school PlayStation 2 days that I'm thinking about this stuff, and that sounds really cool if it can do that.
Well, the only backwards compatibility that they're talking about is PS4 games, right?
PS4. So it doesn't go all the way back. Oh man, no, that would have been so dope. I'm playing my
yeah, but Microsoft is like, nah, we're backwards compatible to like Xbox 360, right? Like they're like,
yeah, that's great.
We got it all covered.
That's cool. Yeah. No, that'll. I think that'll have a much bigger. They'll actually. I mean, I haven't thought about backwards compatibility in a long time, but that's really cool. I think, like, especially now with like a lot of players, like they have to like dig up games that they've like played like a long time ago because they're in quarantine now. Yeah, buried in the garage, And so like saying that you have backwards compatibility when you have a library as big as fuck, it's like, people like that stuff. I definitely would appreciate that for sure.
It's actually interesting you're mentioning this, because I think people appreciate it, but the number of people that actually use it, like in practice, like for real, is like really, really small.
Yeah.
Right. And like you do all this work, all this blood, sweat, and tears to get the emulation or whatever stuff to work, and then like nobody uses it, right? You know what I mean? But then of course it's a major selling point when you want to sell the console, right? Because everybody's like, oh yeah, you have to be backwards compatible, and then the 5 people that really care about it use it, and everybody else has their old console is still hooked up, and they just play games on that, right? So it's really weird.
Yeah.
I see it as a long-term investment, like the same way that DVDs kind of left, and then the streaming world for movies kind of just have that huge library of inventory, right? I see once they have those $10 subscription up and ready from both Xbox and PS5, that's going to be a huge selling point to be able to play PS2 games on your phone or whatever, right? So I think it's definitely worth the investment for them to do it now. But I think you are correct for the PS5 people that actually buy the console. They're not going to really mess with that as much. But the subscription service is going to be huge. Just having thousands of games available for $10 a month, man. Oh my god, that is a dream.
Game Pass.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Like
Game Pass is
imagine
close.
imagine Game Pass, and then you add Project xCloud. Like that's Microsoft's strategy,
Mhm.
right? They want you playing their games everywhere, right?
Yeah, very smart.
And that's gonna be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a very interesting year, and we're at the hour mark. But I also want to have your guys' final thoughts. Right, I'm very surprised that they're going forward with these consoles at the end of the year. Will there be people still having jobs to buy these things? Like, is that still happening? It seems insane that we're going through this like economic downturn, and then people will have enough like $500, I'm guessing, right, to kind of shell out to buy these consoles. I'm very surprised that they haven't delayed this.
I'll say this, right? I think all these things are coming out at the end of the year, right? So Christmas, right? I think like, everybody's hoping that this will be over long before Christmas.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what everybody's thinking is, and that's what everybody's hopes and dreams are. Because if it is going on much longer, like, yeah, it'll be real bad, I think, if that was to happen.
Right.
Yeah, I think that what in the optimistic case, and I want to be optimistic because I've got kids and
you don't want
and all
anymore.
that stuff. No, I love them having home, but instead I'm talking to you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll still be here.
No. I want to believe that we'll beat the COVID-19 before the end of the year for sure. I think if we do, I think what will happen is, the global economy will kick back up slowly, though. I mean, the damage is done. There's not a lot of people have lost jobs. Unemployment rate is ridiculous right now across the globe. But when things stabilize, I think people will want to start buying stuff again. And I don't know like how that compares to a normal economy when you have these announcements and you have all the conferences to build up the hype. But I do think there's going to be, once the coast is clear, like a lot of people are just going to come out of their homes and just want to party and do things and live life like they used to, And so end of the year is a pretty good time. Always a good time because of Christmas and the holidays and all. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm hoping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, for everybody out there that is going through this, we are at home with you. And if China is any type of sign of hope, it seems like they are in a better position after like 4 months or so. So it seems to be going to take us through the summer, like everybody kind of am guessing right now. So by that time, we'll save enough money to get a PS5. I guess that's the plan.